Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the pretty wild story behind Michael A. Singer's life philosophy, something he called the surrender experiment. And believe me, it all started not with some grand plan, but with a single, quiet little realization that ended up changing, well, everything.
So, this is the big question at the heart of the whole thing. It really starts with a simple but pretty profound idea that most of us spend our lives in this exhausting battle, constantly pitting what we think we want against the natural flow of life that's just happening all around us.
And here's how Singer breaks it down. On one side, you've got our personal will, right? It's all based on our likes and dislikes, what we want, what we don't want, and honestly, it's the source of most of our stress and anxiety. But on the other side, you've got the flow of life itself. We're talking about the result of 13.8 billion years of cosmic forces. The same stuff that creates planets and trees and, us. We're putting our little preferences up against this incomprehensible perfection. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
So he decided to do something pretty radical. He decided to turn his entire life into one big 40-year experiment. The goal was simple, really. What would happen if he just stopped fighting? What if he chose to align his will with whatever life brought his way, trusting that this massive universal flow actually knew what it was doing?
Now, you might think a 40-year experiment would start with some kind of huge dramatic event. But nope, it actually began really quietly back in the winter of 1970 with just a subtle little whisper. And at the time, Singer was just an economics grad student who had zero interest in any of this spiritual stuff.
Okay, so picture this. He's just sitting on a couch with his brother-in-law, and there's this awkward lull in the conversation. He feels this pressure to say something, anything. But then something shifts. He suddenly notices that he isn't just feeling anxious. He's actually watching an anxious voice inside his head scrambling to fill the silence. And for the very first time it hit him, he wasn't the voice. He was the one listening to it.
He realized he had this constant narrator, this inner roommate, as he calls it, that just never, ever shut up. It was always there, commenting, judging, worrying. He'd been so lost in its nonstop chatter his whole life that he never even realized it was separate from his actual self.
So he just turns to his brother-in-law and asks him that exact question. And his brother-in-law's response was instant. Yes, mine never shuts up. And that simple little moment of validation, it gave Singer a brand new purpose. His life's passion became crystal clear. He had to figure out how to quiet that voice.
So, this quest for inner silence led him to a book called 3 Pillars of Zen, and it gave him a practical tool, something he could actually do, meditation. It was a way to actively try and quiet that noisy mind, and this was the first step toward a major breakthrough.
So during a camping trip, he finds this quiet spot under a tree, and with just absolute total sincerity, he makes this intense vow to himself. He wasn't playing around. He was desperate for a change, and he decided he wasn't getting up until he found one.
And as he meditated deeper than he ever had before, this powerful, booming voice, totally different from the usual neurotic chatter, just erupted from deep inside him. It wasn't a thought, it was a challenge, basically asking him if he was ready to let go and see what was on the other side. And he did. He let go. He broke through into this state of just profound peace. The inner roommate was gone, completely. In its place was this deep, sacred stillness. It was just an awareness of being without any of the constant commentary. For the first time, he was experiencing true inner silence.
But you know how it goes. That perfect peace didn't last forever. Pretty soon, the real world came crashing back in. His marriage unexpectedly ended, and it left him in total emotional turmoil. This wasn't some weekend meditation retreat anymore. He was now being forced to practice letting go for real, right in the middle of some genuine pain.
He needed a place to just go and meditate for the summer, so he decided to stop trying to force a plan. Instead, he just started paying attention to the signs life seemed to be leaving for him, and it got weird. First, a classmate just randomly mentions Mexico. Then, in a bookstore, he literally trips over a book about touring Mexico. And the final straw? He finds a map of Mexico just left on top of a gas pump. The message was getting pretty hard to ignore.
So what does he do? He just drove to Mexico with no agenda at all. He just followed the flow. And of course, he ends up in this absolutely perfect, secluded spot on a grassy hill where he spent weeks in total peace and solitude. It was this huge lesson for him. Life had provided exactly what he needed the second he stopped trying to control it.
But his most profound lesson, that was still on its way.
It came on a day when his deepest fears were confronted head-on by the gentle reality of life's flow.
So he's out there doing yoga one afternoon, and he hears voices and horses approaching. Instantly, his mind just floods with every warning he'd ever heard. That inner roommate went into total overdrive, screaming that he was about to be robbed, or worse, by bandits.
But instead of panicking, he forced himself to just stay calm and observe what was actually happening. And what he saw was amazing. The voice of fear had created this whole terrifying movie in his head about bandits. But the flow of life, that presented something completely different. Two kind ranch hands who were just quietly and respectfully watching him.
These supposed bandits actually invited him to their small village. And when he got there, he was met with such warmth and genuine human connection that his mind just went quiet. For the hours he was there, completely absorbed in this beautiful, real moment, that neurotic inner voice said absolutely nothing. Not a single word, zero.
And that experience, right there, planted the seed for his entire life's work. It left him with the question that would guide him for the next 40 years, turning his whole life into the ultimate surrender experiment. It's a really powerful question, and it's one that's worth asking ourselves too. Was it possible that life has more to give us than we could ever possibly take for ourselves?
So in our last explainer, we watched Michael Singer go deep into the woods, all in the search of inner peace. But what happens when that journey takes a wild, unexpected turn? What if you decided to stop fighting life and just surrender to it? Okay, let's dive right into this next chapter of his incredible story. I mean, it's a crazy question, right? It's a total paradox. The one guy whose only goal is to find quiet and solitude ends up running this massive public company. This question is really the heart of the story. And the answer? Well, it all comes down to one powerful decision he made.
And this is it. This is the question that basically turned his entire life into a 40-year-long experiment. Instead of trying to force his own plans onto the world, he decided to just trust the flow of life itself. The idea was really simple, but as you're about to see, the results were absolutely world-changing.
Okay, so to turn this big philosophical idea into something you can actually practice every day, Singer didn't create some complicated system. Nope, he just boiled his experiment down to a simple but really profound set of rules that would guide every single decision he made from then on.
And here they are. It's so simple. Just 2 steps. First, you have to consciously let go of that nagging inner voice. You know, the one that's always telling you, I like this, or, I really don't want to do that. Then, step 2, once you've quieted that personal noise, you can actually see what the situation in front of you is asking for. And then, you just do it.
And wouldn't you know it, the first test came almost immediately. The dean of his college asked him to tutor a local banker. His mind instantly screamed, no way. It went against everything he wanted for his quiet, solitary life. But the experiment demanded he ignore that voice and just say yes. And he did. In that single moment, the whole thing truly began.
That one little yes was like the first small stone that starts a massive avalanche. By just consistently letting go of what he wanted, Singer opened the door for life to bring him one insane opportunity after another, and they all built on each other in ways he never ever could have planned.
And you can see here just how fast things started to snowball. He starts out as a yogi wanting nothing but peace and quiet. All of a sudden, because he says yes to one request, boom, he's a college teacher. Then another yes makes him a published author, and another turns him into a construction business owner, literally building houses for his community. None of this was part of some grand plan. It was just what happened when he got out of his own way.
And here's the thing. These were just jobs. Each one was this transformative experience that just kept pushing his boundaries. A reluctant yes to helping one inmate led to over 30 years of incredibly meaningful work inside a maximum security prison. His life was just expanding in all these directions he never could have imagined on his own.
So, just when he thought life had kind of settled into this nice rhythm of teaching and building and serving, well, the flow of surrender was about to take its most shocking turn yet, straight into the world of tech and big business.
Get this, Singer had literally never touched a computer. But on one random day, 2 completely separate people called him, both looking for a software program that he didn't have and knew absolutely nothing about. Now, instead of just dismissing it as a wrong number, he followed the flow. He looked into it, and in that moment of surrender, the next massive chapter of his life kicked off.
And from those 2 simple phone calls, this happened. A company called The Medical Manager was born.
This yogi, who all he wanted was to meditate in the woods, ended up creating this revolutionary software and a company that employed thousands of people. It's just incredible. The scale of success that came from all this is almost hard to wrap your head around. His company eventually got a merger offer for $1 billion. And this all came not from chasing some personal goal, but by simply serving the needs that life put right in front of him. And here's the most important part. While his life on the outside got incredibly big and complex, his inner state actually became simpler and more peaceful. Flying on a private jet to discuss that billion-dollar deal, he didn't feel pride. He felt this deep sense of humility and wonder. He was just in love with the process of letting life take the lead. But, life doesn't just hand you amazing opportunities. It also gives you trials. And Singer's experiment was about to face the ultimate test. A storm so big it threatened to destroy everything he had allowed life to build.
One Wednesday morning, his entire world was turned upside down. With absolutely no warning, the FBI raided his company. I'm talking helicopters circling overhead, agents everywhere shutting it all down. And suddenly, his name was at the top of a federal indictment.
The fallout was just immediate and devastating. He had to resign as CEO from the company he built from nothing. His 30 years of prison work, gone, terminated just like that. And he was staring down conspiracy charges that could put him in prison for up to 15 years. Everything life had given him was now being taken away.
Now this is where you see the real power of his 40-year practice. Instead of seeing this as a total catastrophe, he saw it as the ultimate spiritual opportunity. To him, this wasn't a punishment. It was a fire meant to purify whatever fear and ego was left inside of him. He chose to surrender to it completely.
For 5 long years, his life just hung in the balance. But his experiment was always about surrendering to the process, not controlling the outcome. He just had to trust, no matter how dark and terrifying it all seemed. So let's see what happened.
And then, just as suddenly as the nightmare began, it was over. After a grueling 5-year legal battle, the government dropped every single charge against him. He was completely and totally exonerated.
But that whole ordeal had profoundly changed him. As he put it himself, he who left on this journey never returned. The person who started this experiment, the one who was so full of personal preferences and deep fears, had just been completely worn away, and in his place was someone who was truly at peace with life, exactly as it is.
And this might be the most powerful lesson of all. Because he met this unbelievable challenge with surrender instead of resistance, it left no lasting trauma, no scars. It's such a beautiful metaphor. The huge waves of this ordeal washed over him, but once they passed, the surface of his inner self was calm and clear again, as if nothing had ever disturbed him. Singer's story is just this extraordinary testament to a life lived in complete trust. And it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about in our own lives. If you let go of all your personal likes and dislikes, if you stopped fighting against what is and just decided to serve what's right in front of you, where would life's perfect flow take you?